Happy Sunday, everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of the Pitstop Pals. Nielson and Gage are with you to recap the Spanish Grand Prix, and what a Spanish Grand Prix it was. Gager, how you doing, buddy?
Good, man. Happy Sunday.
Yeah.
Hope you were able to get up and enjoy the race with the kids and stuff. I had the house to myself, basically, so it was just great.
I'm not going to lie. Today was one of those days I preferred to have the house to myself. The kids this morning were just... They're just talking so much, and I'm trying to listen to, like, you know, when they go to the driver audio and stuff, and I'm like, quiet, trying to listen to the race. But I mean, it was still a really good experience this morning. But today was one of those days I would have rather just chilled in the basement. Usually I turn it on upstairs with like everybody, and there's a few times today I was just like, Daddy's gonna go downstairs here right away. I really want to go, but I want to be a family guy. So it was tough. But I mean, there is buddy. Where's the board? What's the board look like? Because we got to have there's a few things to discuss here today.
Yeah, hold on. So boards.
There we go. Yeah, that's a busy board.
Yeah. It's a busy board.
That's a busy board.
So
yeah.
The one thing I wrote down at the end, like, it was kind of that what if race, right?
Yeah.
Like, just like this happened, what if this didn't happen, and things like that. Like, to see Leclerc, just it looked like a Sunday drive for him. He was coasting, and then just to fall apart. And I actually went back and listened to his helmet cam. Boy, was he pissed off.
Was he pissed?
But, oh yeah, he was really pissed. So, but I mean, I guess they were talking about it, what happened with Red Bull at the beginning of the year, having that, so it's kind of evened out, you could say.
Yeah.
The race is still tight. The race is still really tight, right? It's only a few points separate them, but now, as you see, Max has taken over as a champion for this year so far.
I think that's a good way to describe that race, like a what if type of race. And I mean, it's a fair point. I mean, Red Bull had some issues early in the year, which allowed Leclerc and Ferrari to have some pretty good starts. If Max has finished a race, he's won a race. So, I mean, there's that to talk about it here with this as well. What if Lewis Hamilton doesn't get that puncture early on? I think his car, and we'll talk about him in a second, he was flying today. So where do we start on this one, Gage? We just start with Max Verstappen and talk about his day, talk about the entire Red Bull situation, I guess, because they've got a little bit of a situation on their hands here.
Well, yeah, that's a little bit. I'd like to talk about Hamilton first, though.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
The driver of the day, and to tell you the truth, Dusty, I was a little bit upset when he did get the puncture, and he was so melancholy on the radio saying maybe we should save the engine for later. But then I don't know, the fire just grew in him. And just moving up to, I believe, 5th. So, like, the unreal drive by Hamilton today. Really good to see. Just because some of those improvements to the Mercedes car, and even when breaking down those lap times in certain areas, the Mercedes was outperforming everyone else. Like, there was a point where Hamilton was going faster than Russell in a lot of those sectors, right? So really encouraging to see Mercedes. They're inching their way closer and closer to those top spots, I think, Dusty. So I don't know if it's next race or the next one, but I think within 3 to 4 races here, we could probably see a Mercedes challenging a lot more in the qualifying sectors and getting on in that front row.
Well, yeah, I think they've got to be ecstatic with how the day finished, considering maybe not where they started, but certainly where they were after a lap or two. Lewis basically got knocked down to 19th because Magnussen was behind him there at the beginning after the incident, and then was as high as 4th, and then had the cooling issue there with a little bit of a water leak, and had to kind of just let Carlos, which must have sucked for him. You get all the way back up, you get into 4th, and you just have to watch Carlos Sainz absolutely blow by you late in that race. So that's got to be a little frustrating. But yeah, I think I think through the first, 5-6 episodes that we did the Pitstop Pals, we were kind of just hoping that Mercedes could get themselves back into the mix, Gage. And I think after seeing what Lewis Hamilton did today, like when I started to see him popping up in the, like he had the fastest lap a few times, didn't he? Like I saw him, and he was one of the first guys into the 125s and then 124. Like it was a pretty impressive run. And even watching Toto after on the checkered flag, he finally looked like he had some confidence in what Lewis Hamilton could possibly do in that car now.
Yeah, it completely different. And even hearing Toto talk to Lewis at the end of the race over the radio too, right? That whole look, great, unbelievable, Lewis, we're getting there and stuff. And to hear Lewis a little bit more encouraged to be in that car and see the possibilities of it. It was great. But speaking of Mercedes, George Russell, he's unreal. Like, to hold off Max for that long, and I know the DRS, Max was having trouble. It was so funny, Dusty, because when you have the data tracker on, it signals when the DRS is enabled on each car, so it tells you. And you could hear how Max was saying, "I'm pressing this button," but you can see it on
times.
yeah, but you can see it on my laptop. The DRS just going because Max was just hammering on this button. So it was pretty funny, but. Oh man, that's more technical issues with Red Bull, which is kind of weird. And for Max to be able to, I think just with we said before, just this 3-stop race, getting onto those soft tires and seeing what he could do on those, it didn't even matter that he had DRS at that point. And Russell was on older tires at that point, but great to see Russell defend and the
multiple times too. Yeah.
Unreal. And
I think it was lap 24 where Max got by him and Russell just boom, right back right away. I thought that was great. Like you just don't see. We saw that a little bit earlier in the year with Verstappen and Leclerc a couple times where Leclerc let Verstappen get by and then cut back in on him. And that's kind of what I immediately thought of when I saw those two guys going at it.
Yeah, there's some definite racecraft and seeing guys battle and how they do things. Like Max seems to be a little bit impatient and going for gaps more often than others, and then you see the cutbacks by Russell or Leclerc like earlier on in the season and regaining their positions. But I loved it. It was great. Gosh, it would have been nice to see Russell if he was on a little bit fresher tires at that point. To see a really good battle. Because again, there's another driver that was pretty pissed at the end of that, and that's Checo Perez that got the okay, Checo, time to let Max through, and he was upset. And because of that battle, I think Checo could have won that race easily.
Yeah, he could have.
He could have just gone ahead. They could have pit him and gone because he was way ahead at that point. And so tough for him. I wonder what's going to happen in the evening debriefs, because look, I know he was almost out of F1 and then Red Bull signed him, and he's had 2 great years. I do believe his contract's up for next year already, but what kind of, do you want to stay number 2 in a great situation at Red Bull? But you hear him, I want to win. I want to do well too. So this is going to be quite interesting, because you could hear him on the radio, goes, look, my DRS is working. I'm ready to go.
Which is true, right? He said, let me get by. Like, let me go. Like,
let me go here. This is ridiculous. So, and I'd love to see a Checo Verstappen battle. Like, let's see those two go at it. That'd be awesome, because Checo's a beast when he defends. I love it on the monitor on the race radio there when he's just like, we'll talk about it later. He was trying to be really good about it, but you could tell even on checkered flag when they were talking to him after, he said, and it was a good question. They asked him, is it too early in the year to just, be making those team decisions when you could have ended up having, now because of the way that the strategy went, Max would have had him if they decided to go head to head at the end. But it's got to be frustrating when you've done as well as he has done and you're sitting there looking at it, you're part of a team, but the entire focus of that team is to have the other guy do better than you. I can't imagine living in that. You're making millions of dollars, you're having a lot of success. I get it. I guess maybe you have to suck it up at that point, Gager, but that would piss me off. That would be tough. Yeah. Especially at this point in the season too, right?
Yeah, it's so early.
It's so early at this point. Like, why not have Checo way up there and gain some points. Max is still gonna take over the lead. I think he would have anyway. So, or it would have been close. I'd have to look at that. But I mean, just having two Red Bull drivers at the top of the drivers' standings, I think that would just. But I mean, it's Max's team. I think you don't want a poopy Max, because Max was poopy a lot during that race. Like he was yelling and screaming at that DRS. Like I was just thinking about the song. Someone just play him the song. He'll be fine. Yeah.
calm. They should have just popped in there and been a DRS. Like relax, man. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be all right. It's funny because like the overall vibe, like Verstappen is almost always angry on his, when he's talking almost all the time, at least what they show. And I mean, you're on the cam all the time and you can listen to everything he says, and I can too. And I'm watching the reaction. Lewis Hamilton gets driver of the day today. So I click on the thread on F1. It's been like thousands and thousands of retweets, thousands and thousands of replies, and everybody's in there. They're all over Lewis Hamilton. They're just like, oh my God, this guy wanted to give up at the beginning of the race, some goat. Like they're just all over him. And I mean, for the most part, at the beginning here, he's like, oh, maybe we'll just save this engine. And they're like, no, go get it. And he did. And, he was at the end of the race. He's like, very happy, guys, very encouraging. Like, this is a great step for us. And so to me, I automatically think like Lewis Hamilton's getting that LeBron treatment, like where you just don't respect the fact that he took the Cleveland Cavaliers to a championship in 2007 with a bunch of nobodies. Lewis Hamilton took his car today from 19th up to 4th at one point and finished 5th. And people are still just like, yeah, but he wanted to give up earlier on, so it doesn't even matter. Like it's just, and they're always like, oh, his attitude sucks. Yet Max is over here yelling at his team the entire time. It's wild to me, like the perception of these two guys. It's crazy. I love it.
Oh, this is what gets you dragged into this thing. Like I really do wish Max would stay on that Netflix series, because this episode would be great. A Drive to Survive with this, because so much happened, right? Like and to hear Max just swearing at his team, but then it's so funny because whatever. Half an hour later, all of a sudden he's saying, "Thanks, guys, great job, way to work hard." For 20 minutes, he goes, "You fucking guys can't even get the DRS.
You're killing me.
You're killing me."
Yeah.
So it was great, man. I loved it. What else? The one thing I like I've been starting to watch Pit Stop Times, right, Dusty, and that's what really I was looking at with Leclerc, like when he came in to put on the fresh set of mediums, I think. And the Ferraris just seemed like they were firing on all cylinders, like 2.2 pit stop time for Leclerc at first. And it just said, oh my God, like nothing's going to happen to him here. He's going to roll with that. But really cool when I think it was Russell and I think was it Perez that came in for their pit stops, and like 2.4. It was
2.2 and 2.4 or something like that. I remember that. Yeah.
So yeah. And just great to see. Like I'm kind of a pit. Well, we're the Pitstop Pals.
Yeah, we love
these
the
things. I don't understand why they don't have these things locked down. So, but great pit stop times by both teams. It's kind of fantasy wise, Dusty, that when Leclerc went out, I kind of let out a no. I was pretty angry at that. But.
Well, let's talk about Ferrari in general. I mean, you look at where they start in this race. 1 and 3. Carlos Sainz, not a good start. I mean, right away, boom, one past him. Checo was past him. Hamilton was right there as well. Looked like he had him. He managed to get that spot back before Hamilton bumps into to Magnussen. But then, Sainz ends up going off. Fell back to 12th, I think, works his way back up. Pretty decent finish. He gets up to 4th. Charles Leclerc is, by the way, my daughter Elizabeth, she loves saying, today she said, she hadn't even brought it up yet. She's talking about the race, and she goes like this at one point. She goes, and that's Charles Leclerc. And she turns around and looks at me like, I was just like, good work, Muzz. It's great. But, he was leading the race. Looked like he was going to run away with it. And so, I mean, that's a negative that fell apart. The fact that Carlos Sainz went off the track again was a negative, but then he worked his way back up and had a pretty solid finish to that race. So, I mean, massive disappointment. Maybe one little bright spot in there for Ferrari, but I mean, I guess they were due to have something like this happen. They're still in a pretty decent spot overall because of some of the success they had a little bit earlier on. But when you look at the final top 5 today, you see 2 Mercedes and you see 2 Red Bulls and you see 1 Ferrari. That stings big time today.
Well, and with Carlos going off too, it wasn't really his fault. Like they were talking about after the race.
What happened with Max too, right?
It was that there was a strong tailwind in that came into that corner and just caused cars to just lose their back end like that. So that was, that happened. I was like, oh, Carlos, not again, right? I was thinking, but I think a little bit was out of his control just with the wind conditions, because as you saw, Max did a much better job of saving the car and going into that gravel straight and being able to recover a little bit better. But they were talking about just the confidence level that Carlos has with the car, and like going off like that, possibly breaking. I mean, he still had a fantastic race to get back to where he was. Like that's unbelievable race for him. It's so I can't wait to see him actually have just a solid start to finish race.
Hasn't really had that, right?
No, nothing like that. And just get the right strategy. Red Bull that's another thing I wrote down, Dusius. Red Bull always seems to have the strategies dialed in, like the right things to do at the right times, when to pit, what tires to use. That's never been an issue with them. They knew about the Checo, they were going to try the 2-stop with him, and he complained about that. Bottas was complaining about that strategy too. So, but it's weird. You'd think with that weather, I think track temperature.
I was going to say, with the weather, why'd they not all be planning for a 3-stop? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. If they knew they weren't going to go to the hards at any point, and barring something really wrong happening, and all going 3 stops with these mediums and softs, where the softs, I thought they lasted a long time. Like they didn't seem to degrade that quickly. Like guys' times were quite good, but man, that's the other teams, especially with Mercedes, and Alfa Romeo. They got to get these strategies down, Pat, because that race, they said at the beginning, it's really hard to overtake. So strategy is going to be probably the key factor in teams winning the race. And as we saw, Red Bull nailed it.
Lewis has been screwed over a couple times on strategy so far this year. So we'll see if that car continues to improve and they can get some of the strategy figured out. Maybe they are able to strike. Let's just take a look at the top 10 from today. You got Verstappen, Checo, Russell, Sainz, Lewis Hamilton, Bottas, Esteban Ocon. Again, nice drive. Finished 7th. We always talked about it last episode. I was like, this guy just always seems to be in the top 8. And he finished 7th, very quiet 7. Lando Norris, who is deathly ill today by all accounts, he finished 8th. And then everybody else was lapped at least once. Some of these guys were lapped twice today. Alonso, a nice drive, moving up from the back of the pack. He finishes 9th, and Tsunoda finishing 10th. And then Vettel, Ricciardo, Gasly, Schumacher, and Lance Stroll rounding out the top 15. Latifi, Magnussen, and Albon all lapped twice. And then obviously a couple of guys with the DNF. Gage, or anything else jump off the page for you in that top 10 at least? So, disappointing day for me for Ricciardo. Started in the top 10. It just seemed like no matter what he got going, he just kept getting past. Like there wasn't a lot of pushback from that McLaren today.
Yeah, nothing really there. Norris, okay drive considering how sick he was with, what they say, hay fever or something like that. Like
a lot going on there.
Yeah. What's really interesting to me, Dusty, is Alpine, their car. Like it's really competitive, and
finished 7th and 9th today. Yeah,
great times with. I think really like they gave the driver of the day to Hamilton, but Fernando Alonso. He started at the back of the grid too, right? Like and moved all the way back up. Like those and Esteban, they're really good drivers. Like I'm thinking they're going to be up there with in that middle pack before you know it. They've had some bad luck and with the car a little bit, but the car works. Their drivers are really good. It seems like a lot of those things that maybe were just out of their control a little bit. But I might have to look at Alpine drivers in some of my pools here because they're consistently getting points.
The standings after the Spanish Grand Prix look like this. Verstappen, 110 points. Charles Leclerc, 104. Checo's at 85. George Russell's at 74. He's finished top 5 in every race so far. Carlos Sainz is at 65. Lewis Hamilton is in 6th with 46 points. Lando, 39 points. He sits in 7th. Bottas with 38, right behind Lando. He's in 8th. And then Ocon is 9th with 30 points. And Kevin Magnussen, Haas, is sitting right now with 15 points. Good enough in 10th. How about Haas starting with 2 in the top 10? I knew it was going to fall apart, but that was still nice to see for them.
Well, they had such good qualifying. Like they were so good in qualifying. I was like, oh man, maybe Haas is back. And they were talking about Gunther was talking about how, and the whole Haas team, how they're not bringing any upgrades, right? They're not bringing any upgrades for at least another probably 3-4 races. They feel that the car still has so much untapped potential in it that they're still figuring out. So it doesn't really make sense to bring an upgrade if they're not just for upgrade's sake, and it's not really going to do anything, or start from scratch with learning about the car more. So they want to bring upgrades that are going to do something. And I think they just want to learn more about this car, because hey, that's a very competitive car with these guys, and they were the only ones to not bring any upgrades this week. We probably won't see them for the next few races. So it'd be great to see them actually stay competitive with this car, bring some upgrades that actually do something, and down the stretch in the back half of the season, possibly challenge for more constructors points. That's to see Gunther with a smile on his face. That's one of the reasons I watch this thing.
One of the best things is that he doesn't need to accomplish a lot to get that smile on his face, right?
Yeah.
Like point, he's just like, we did it. Yeah. Like we did it. It's amazing. I love that. Gage, right away, I love this. The back-to-backs, Monaco coming up here right away. Coming out of this race, coming out where we are in the standings right now, what's the big storyline for you from now here on Sunday to when things get rolling on Friday in Monaco?
Well, I think just Charles going home. That's the big story, right? And he's I think they said he's never finished a race at Monaco, but it's his home race.
Needed to bounce back here, yeah.
Yeah, and that from all accounts, going to the street circuits, Ferrari might have a little bit of an advantage here.
Should help.
And this race is ridiculous. Like the way it looks, I think it's got to be probably the most iconic F1 race. If you talk to anyone that doesn't even, like, before I even got into this, I knew about the race in Monaco, right? It was just ridiculous on the water with the boats and the glitz and glam. So I can't wait to actually just watch the practice and go through the whole weekend watching Monaco stuff. So I think it's all about Ferrari to get back, punch back at Red Bull, and we'll see what Mercedes does too. Right? That's they're pumped, right?
That was going to be my honorable mention there. I think, obviously Leclerc in a bounce back and Ferrari trying to get back on track. Probably the big one going into it, but can Mercedes take another step here? Like, could we see both Mercedes cars push for a possible podium, or even, starting on the top two rows on the grid or something along those lines? I think that would be interesting storyline heading into Monaco as well. And I will just say, I play the video game a lot. That Monaco Grand Prix driving it is an absolute nightmare. I don't know if I've ever finished it. Like, I'll restart the race a bunch of times. Finally, I'll settle in at like 12 and I'll just sort of coast around. It's just so damn narrow. Like there's no room on that racetrack. It's insane. So it's probably the one that I've played the most because I always restart it. So I know that it's very like I cannot wait to see this race next weekend. And I like the fact we're getting the back-to-backs. It just seems like the season has been so spread out to start this year. It's driving me nuts.
It's crazy. Like they were talking about the summer break. I go, oh God, that's way too long between races. So yeah, to go right into another race week, that it puts a smile on my face. This is great, and especially because it's going straight into Monaco. And I mean, they'll be in Canada before you know it. This is awesome, Dusty. We got to get our tickets.
I was going to say, we got to start planning that. All right, that's going to do it for episode 7 of the Pitstop Pals. If you've been watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Just search the Pitstop Pals everywhere. And if you're listening on the podcast, make sure you leave a review for us. That would go a long way. That'd be awesome. Gager, enjoy the rest of your long weekend, buddy. And thanks for the time talking a little Spanish Grand Prix here today.
All right, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.